Welcome to another book review. I am ahead of the curve, and in this discussion I will be talking about J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye, which was first published in 1951. So the premise of this piece of fiction is that it follows the youthful days of Holden, and it's set in the 1930s, I believe, and it's basically him experiencing life and kind of writing a narration of his time through a series of weeks, I think it must be, or a month, or even a weekend. I'm not really sure. Now, of course, there's a lot of controversy around this piece, and to kind of go over that first, because I feel like it's somewhat, I feel inclined to go over that because, you know, I read these reviews on Goodreads and it's kind of people saying they don't like the book because Holden, who's a 14-year-old kid, or no, 16, yeah, he's 16, and why is it coming as a surprise that he's being overly misogynistic and he's basically being naive in his thinking? And so it feels rather unnecessary to kind of criticize a book and to say it's a bad piece of literature just because the main character happens to have misogynistic views. I mean, it's got nothing to do with the quality of the piece itself. So yeah, that is one thing I firstly saw on the reviews, just people kind of saying it was a bad book because of the character's thinking process. I mean, that makes no sense. It's the same kind of criticism that American Psycho got by Bret Easton Ellis. A lot of people say that book is not good because Patrick Bateman treats women in a certain way and he's like a murderer and stuff like that. You know, it's such a weak argument against a piece of literature. Of course, if a person was like that in real life, then I'd agree all day. But because that is literally the point of the character, to be a misogynist, to be naive, I find that to be a rather dull criticism of the book and American Psycho. So when it comes to my kind of opinion on the piece, I'll shortly say this, and I'll go into this in more depth later, but basically I don't love or hate the piece. I think it was good. You know, I think that was even the rating that I did on Goodreads. It was like, I did 3 stars and it was like, the conclusion is, it was okay. You know, and whilst I don't hate the book, and I don't love it either because I don't feel like it deserves either extreme. If I'm completely honest, I was actually considering to put the book down and to actually quit reading halfway through, about 100 pages in. I was just like, where is the plot? What is the actual point of this piece of literature? So the writing of the book was really well crafted, and the author clearly understood the thinking patterns of a youth. But whilst I can say that I enjoyed the writing, I just didn't really like that there wasn't a plot. I did have an issue with that. But on the other hand, I can also agree with anyone who says the book isn't even supposed to have a plot. Holden is a very confused and out of sync character. And I think that might be even the point. The point is that it isn't even a plot because his life isn't even thought out like a plot would be. And so I do see the perspective of the book isn't even supposed to tell a straight story. A plot isn't supposed to have that. But again, whilst I recognise this doesn't change my mind about how I felt when I was actually reading it. So yeah, after putting the book down, I thought, you know, about to kind of put it down and start another book. I was just thinking, it's literally under 200 pages. I might as well just finish it. I've literally got like 90 pages left. Why not try? And you know, a lot of people have high thoughts about it and they give it really good reviews. So I was like, am I missing something? So I thought, why not just continue to the end? And I did. And I'm glad I did as well. I don't think it did change my perspective of the piece slightly. I think I enjoyed it more when I managed to actually finish it, but I still think it has major issues on a personal level for me, which is just I just didn't think it was very exciting or I'd even dare to say that it was slightly boring at times. I was skimming pages. I really liked the dialogue though. I mean, that was really good. One comparison that I have thought of actually, that I'd say that this book is a lot like, and I'd say the other book is actually better, is Charles Bukowski's Ham on Rye. Now I have actually reviewed this on my channel, which I will leave that in the description or the comments, whatever. I'll leave that so you can check that out. But I feel like that book is just so much more in-depth and philosophical, existential, and it's a lot more gritty and savage. And whilst this book can be kind of subtle in its metaphors and its symbolism, I feel like Ham on Rye basically told a same sort of story, but just did it so much better. And so I was reading the book thinking, like halfway through, thinking, wow, this is basically just a worse version of Ham on Rye. Yeah, maybe it's a weird comparison. Maybe I'm not sure. If any of you have actually read Bukowski's Ham on Rye, tell me if you think that they in some way relate, or I'm just being crazy or something. Because I really do think that they're very similar pieces of writing. You know, it's kind of written without a plot, and it's kind of a narrative. It's coming of age story sort of. So yeah, I felt they were just very similar. But yeah, I just enjoyed Ham on Rye 100 times more. So as I said before, Holden throughout, you know, in the brilliant writing that Salinger presents us, I think he did a great job. Right, the dialogue is probably my favourite aspect of the book. Well, apart from the metaphors and stuff like that, I feel like the style of dialogue was really, really engaging. For example, when he was talking to like the intellectual towards the second half of the piece, and when he was talking to the teacher at the start, and then the prostitute and stuff like that, I felt that dialogue was really, really strong. It's just, again, the story itself I didn't really cling to. But again, I trace back on myself, because the entire character of Holden is this unpredictable, non-pathway type of identity. And it also feels like throughout, I think Salinger did this really well, is he made it very clear that Holden was basically contradicting himself throughout the piece or the story. He would think one thing and then he'd do the opposite. Or, yeah, he was a very unpredictable character. He sort of kind of wanted his own identity. He wanted to kind of appear visible to other people, but on the other hand, he didn't. And I think this is something that we all kind of face, especially like when we're growing up. It's kind of like, who do we want to be seen as? And what sacrifice are we ready to take in order to be seen? And because being seen is very vulnerable, obviously Holden kind of would think he's a pussy or something if he kind of expresses himself more. So he's a very kind of dull character, but again, it's with the intention of bringing this kind of authenticity to the character throughout the novel. So yeah, like again, going back to this kind of criticism of him being very dull and just being, and I know I said I thought the story was boring, but I don't think he as a character was boring. Those are two different things. And the thing is, the book kind of does what it says it does. You know, it's like when you read, or go back to American Psycho again, it's when you read that kind of book, you read what it's about, right? And you know what it is, and it knows what it is. Yet people still feel the need to say that it was too gory or too misogynistic or too superficial towards society or whatever. Like, you know, these kind of criticisms are just so uncalled for. They're just not even legitimate enough to even listen to. Because, for example, like, if you order fish and chips at a restaurant and they give you fish and chips, you literally got what you asked for, right? So it's that kind of like nonsensicality in this thought process of reviewing a piece of literature and it literally saying what it is on the back, and yet you complain about not even the quality of the literature, but it's just on the character and their traits. It's just so unnecessary. So I thought I'd discuss briefly the title of the book, which is obviously The Catcher in the Rye. And this is a reference. I'm not sure if you knew this, because I didn't, but it's quite interesting because this is a reference to Robert Burns's one of his poems. What might relate to that title and what I just said is that he was just trying to preserve his innocence throughout the whole time of the story. I found this especially interesting because, you know, for example, the scene with the prostitute. The thing is that he was trying to be innocent, yet in this world you can't really be innocent. You can't really be pure. It kind of just imposes itself on you. And so Holden, in a way, is trying to preserve his innocence in a world that is not innocent. And I don't even think he was innocent from the start anyway. It certainly doesn't appear that way. I think he's just trying to cling on to any kind of, I don't know, identity that he can. I guess that's what we all try and do. And Holden was kind of like the narrator of this kind of topic, because he was one saying that, you know, all his friends talk about, you know, only girls, drinking and drugs. And even the adults were kind of morally bankrupt. And again, he's trying to preserve his innocence in a world that just completely rejects it. I mean, like in the modern world even, and this book was obviously written a while ago, not when the internet was around for sure. And it's almost like the book still stands up historically, because the world back then obviously would kind of push itself on you, and, you know, events would happen that would be out of your control. Life would be as it is, which is unpredictable. But in the modern world, not only does life still hold up to be naturally unpredictable, but it also imposes unpredictability on you, and it also imposes the opposite of innocence. I mean, young children, for example, are extremely exposed to things that they shouldn't hear or see over the internet, and it's just completely ridiculous. And so I think that kind of metaphor, that kind of idea, it really does survive, even in this modern kind of society that we have with the internet. And it's just kind of exacerbated, if anything. Whilst I might appear to kind of have a lot of understanding of kind of what the writer was trying to say, or at least I appear to be looking into the ideas and concepts, and I obviously am very fond of them, that doesn't kind of escape the fact that overall I just felt like I just personally didn't like it as much as everybody else says how good it is. Again, if you want to read a really good book, which is a lot like this one, but I'd say is even better, just read Charles Bukowski's Ham on Rye. It's just an amazing book. Much more grotesque, much more meaningful, I'd say. Just much more enjoyable as well. I mean, again, I was close to putting this book down and literally just forgetting about it until, you know, some future time when I would go back to it. And as I said, I'm glad that I returned to it very shortly after, and now I have a more kind of balanced view of it. I'm not just kind of, you know, I don't have a half-assed opinion almost. I've actually experienced the whole kind of story. And so, yeah, I do get the overarching picture, the overarching meaning and philosophy behind what the author was trying to say. But yeah, just one of those times, I think, when you read a really kind of popular book and you just wonder, why is it so popular? Why have people given it 5 stars on Goodreads? So if you disagree or agree with what I said, if you've checked out Ham on Rye and read that as well, and let me know what you think about what I said towards that and comparing it to The Catcher in the Rye. If you think I'm maybe overlooking something, I'd love for you to just tell me how I'm wrong, because I have really, really thought about how I could be wrong, what I'm missing out. And honestly, you know, I've read a bit about it, and it seems like I've kind of got the gist of what the author was trying to say. The dialogue were really good, but the presentation, the kind of, I don't know. All right, I don't know. I should probably drink this at this point. Probably get cold, or is cold already. I think that's all I want to say, really. For some reason, my thoughts feel a bit jumbled, to be honest. Yeah. But hopefully I've translated my ideas cohesively enough for you to kind of understand what I'm saying, or at least half of it, at least, hopefully. So yeah, I've been ahead of the curve, and as always, thank you very much for checking out this video. If you liked this, then be sure to subscribe, and also use that like button, because that really does help. Seriously, it gets the algorithms going. Yeah. So yeah, follow my Goodreads if you haven't already, and my Instagram if you don't already follow me on there. That is my main kind of area where I do things, like post quotes and stuff like that. But most of you already know me on there anyway. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say. Arrivederci. I just realised I actually should have ended that video by saying, I'll catch you in the next one. You get it? No. Alright.